Most people can point to Russia on a map, but pointing at something and truly grasping it are two entirely different things. Here is what the numbers actually mean. Russia covers 17.1 million square kilometers. To move from its western border to its eastern coast, you would cross 11 time zones. When Moscow goes to sleep at midnight, the city of Vladivostok on the Pacific coast is already waking up to face the following morning's sun. Both of these moments are happening simultaneously inside the same country. Russia is nearly twice the size of the next largest nation on Earth, Canada. It occupies more than 11% of all the land on our planet's surface. But statistics like these slide past us, too large to hold. So let's try something different. Imagine you are an eagle circling at 10,000 meters. From here, Russia isn't a country with borders. It's something closer to a continent with neighbors. Beneath your wings, the flat European plain gives way to the ancient ridges of the Ural Mountains, and beyond them, the Eurasian landmass unfolds in every direction. Forests so dense they create their own weather, rivers so wide they look like flooded highways from the air, and mountain ranges that have never once been climbed by most of the people living within 1,000 kilometers of them. 144 million people live here, roughly 8 per square kilometer on average. But that average hides an extraordinary reality. Around Moscow and St. Petersburg, millions are packed into one of the most concentrated urban cores in the northern hemisphere. But in vast stretches of Siberia, that density drops to nearly zero. There are regions of Russia larger than all of Western Europe combined, where the only sign of human presence is a single railway line disappearing into the trees. Russia has never been simply a country. It has always been something closer to a challenge. To the people who built it, to the armies that tried to conquer it, and to anyone who tries to understand it from the outside. What happens to a civilization when it has to survive its own geography? When distance becomes architecture? When winter isn't a season but a force that shapes everything, not just weather? Over the next hour, we will travel from the Arctic Ocean to the Pacific Rim, from a railway that crosses a continent to a lake that holds a fifth of all the world's liquid fresh water. This is Russia. Let's begin. Every great country has a place where its history feels closest to the surface, where you can press your hand against stone and feel centuries of decisions vibrating through it. In Russia, that place is Red Square. The name does not mean what most visitors expect. In Old Church Slavonic, Krasnaya meant beautiful, not red. This has always simply been the beautiful square. And walking across its cobblestones for the first time, that name makes immediate sense. The square covers roughly 73,000 square meters in the heart of Moscow. Every direction your eyes move carries them towards something that shouldn't entirely be possible. To the west, the Kremlin. 2 kilometers of crenellated red brick walls, triangular in plan, enclosing a complex of cathedrals, palaces and towers built by Russian princes, czars, and modern leaders in succession across 8 centuries. The walls themselves were rebuilt in the late 15th century by architects brought from Milan and Ferrara, northern Italians, whose designs echo the great fortified castles of the Po Valley, translated here into Russian scale and Russian purpose. Inside stands the Tsar Bell, the largest bell ever cast, weighing over 200 metric tons. It cracked before it could ever be raised. It has never rung, not once. Today it sits on a stone pedestal in open air, a colossal bronze object that exists purely as a record of ambition that got away from itself. Facing the Kremlin across the square, The Cathedral of Basil the Blessed. 9 separate chapels fused under one roofline, each dome a different geometry, a different pattern. The result looks as though a dozen architects worked simultaneously without speaking to each other, and the chaos somehow landed on perfection. It was built between 1555 and 1561, and the entire architectural tradition since has not produced anything quite like it. To the east, the Gum Arcade, a vaulted iron and glass hall more than 200 meters long. Completed in 1893, one of the engineering achievements of its era. During the Soviet period, this was the country's primary retail outlet, often the only place to find imported goods. Today, it remains one of the most visited spaces in Russia, though its draw is now architectural rather than commercial. Red Square is not a museum. Every New Year's Eve, the Spasskaya Tower clock marks midnight before a crowd that fills every cobblestone. Every Victory Day, the country's attention comes here. The square has always been what it was designed to be, the stage on which Russia presents itself, to the world and to itself. "600 kilometers northwest of Moscow, where the Neva River fans out into the Gulf of Finland across a maze of islands and marshland, stands one of the most improbable cities on Earth. Improbable because it was built on terrain that had no right to support a city of any kind, let alone one of the most architecturally deliberate places ever constructed. St. Petersburg was founded in 1703 by Tsar Peter the Great, who decided Russia needed a capital facing Europe and ordered one built on a swamp. The first construction crews drove wooden piles into the waterlogged delta by the tens of thousands just to create stable ground. Today, the city spreads across more than 40 islands, connected by hundreds of bridges. It was designed from the beginning to be seen from the water. The grand facades along the Neva embankments face the river, not the streets, because that is the direction that mattered. At the right hour, with light coming off the Neva at a certain angle, the effect is exactly what Peter intended: overwhelming. The Winter Palace, official residence of the Tsars for nearly 2 centuries, now forms the heart of the State Hermitage Museum, one of the largest art collections in the world. More than 3 million objects, paintings, sculpture, armor, jewelry, and decorative arts assembled across 3 centuries of imperial collecting. If you spent 1 minute in front of every exhibit without sleeping, it would take years to see the end. 15 kilometers west of the city, at the edge of the Gulf of Finland, the Peterhof Palace complex cascades down terraced gardens in more than 100 fountains. But here is the engineering detail that still feels almost impossible. Not one of those fountains uses a mechanical pump. Every jet of water runs entirely on gravity, fed by springs in the southern hills through a network of canals and channels designed in the early 18th century. The system has been operating almost without modification for 300 years. A hydraulic machine so well conceived that it has simply never needed to stop. The city itself has survived more than name changes, 4 of them in a century. During the 900-day siege of the Second World War, it endured bombardment, starvation, and cold that claimed the lives of an estimated 700,000 to over 1 million civilians. The city did not surrender. That fact is not a footnote to how people here understand themselves. It is the foundation. Picture boarding a train in Moscow, not a commuter line, not a high-speed connection between cities, a train that will not stop for you to disembark for 7 full days. The Trans-Siberian Railway covers approximately 9,289 kilometers from Moscow's Yaroslavsky Station to Vladivostok on the Pacific, the longest single railway line ever built, a record it has held since the final sections were completed in the early 20th century. 7 time zones, more than 80 cities and towns, bridges crossing the Volga, the Ob, the Yenisei, rivers that would rank among the most significant on Earth if they flowed through almost any other country. Then the descent toward the Pacific coast, where the next landmass across the water is Alaska. Building this line stands as one of the most demanding engineering undertakings in railway history. Tens of thousands of workers, soldiers, and convict laborers laid track through terrain that had never seen a road, across rivers that had to be bridged from scratch, through permafrost that swallowed equipment, and through summer heat that brought insects dense enough to genuinely affect outdoor working conditions. Winters made steel brittle. Spring floods washed out newly completed sections. The project took roughly 25 years. The railway's impact on Siberia was total. Before it existed, crossing the region could take months by horse and river barge. Afterward, a week. Towns appeared along the line almost immediately. Timber, coal, grain, and minerals that had been effectively locked inside the continent could suddenly move at scale toward the rest of the world. In the most direct sense possible, this single ribbon of steel is what allowed Russia to function as a connected state rather than a collection of regions that merely shared a name. For those who ride it today, the experience resists easy description. The landscape outside the window transforms so slowly that the changes only register over hours. Birch forests gradually thickening into taiga, open steppe giving way to mountain ridges above Lake Baikal. Then the river valleys and container ports of the Far East. Many who have made the full journey describe it not as travel, but as something closer to immersion. A direct, physical experience of what it means for a country to be this large. The train doesn't rush, it simply continues. In that sense, it is very Russian. Most people have heard of the Alps. Fewer know that Europe's tallest peak isn't in the Alps at all, and isn't even close, in the far south of Russia, where the vast Eurasian plain finally exhausts itself against rising terrain. The Caucasus Range forms one of the world's most significant geographical boundaries, the conventional divide between Europe and Asia. And at 5,642 meters, Mount Elbrus towers above everything else on the entire continent. Elbrus is a dormant volcano. Its 2 summits, separated by a saddle at roughly 5,300 meters, are draped by 22 glaciers that feed rivers supplying water to millions of people across the northern Caucasus region. From above, the mountain looks almost gentle, a broad, rounded, white massif rather than the sharp Gothic needles of the alpine peaks. That visual gentleness has cost lives. Because Elbrus is technically accessible by relatively well-equipped mountaineers, with cable cars and ski lifts reaching nearly 4,000 meters before serious climbing even begins. It draws climbers who might otherwise never attempt such altitude. But altitude is altitude, and the weather on the summit plateau can shift from calm to lethal within a single hour. Elbrus consistently ranks among the more dangerous of the world's famous summits, not because it is technically extreme, but because it is too easy to underestimate. The Caucasus Range stretching beneath and around it, roughly 1,200 kilometers between the Black and Caspian Seas, is one of the most linguistically and culturally dense regions in the world. The Russian side alone is home to dozens of distinct ethnic groups, many speaking languages found nowhere else. Archaeological evidence places continuously inhabited settlements in these valleys as far back as 6,000 years. These mountains have been home for a very long time. At dawn on a clear day, the shadow of Elbrus stretches for kilometers across the steppe below, a brief window in which 2 different seas, 2 different continents, and 10,000 years of human history are visible from a single point. Russia has many great rivers, but only one is called Mat Volga, Mother Volga, at roughly 3,530 kilometers. The Volga is the longest river entirely within Europe. It rises from a modest spring in the Valdai Hills northwest of Moscow. At its source, the water that will become one of the continent's mightiest rivers fits within a small stone-lined pool, barely larger than a bathtub. From there, it flows southeast across the Russian plain, gathering tributaries, widening, slowing, and finally spreading into a vast delta at the Caspian Sea. The drainage basin it feeds covers approximately 1.4 million square kilometers, roughly 8% of all Russian territory. And the cities strung along its banks represent a substantial share of the country's industrial and agricultural output. But the Volga is not simply an economic artery. For centuries, it has been the emotional center of the Russian geographic imagination, the river that painters and poets return to again and again as a symbol for the country itself, always moving in one direction regardless of what happens along its banks. Ilya Repin painted his most iconic works here. Generations of folk songs carry its name as though it were a person. On the Volga's western bank stands Volgograd, during the most consequential winter in modern military history as Stalingrad. From August 1942 to February 1943, Soviet and German forces fought in this city at a scale and intensity that reshaped the entire Second World War. Combined military and civilian losses are estimated in the hundreds of thousands to over 1 million. The Soviet victory here is widely regarded as the turning point of the war in Europe. On Mamayev Hill above the river, the statue known as the Motherland calls, approximately 85 meters, tall from base to raised sword tip, stands visible from the water for kilometers in every direction. It was built not to celebrate victory in the usual sense, but to mark the price at which it was purchased. The river flows on past all of this. It always has. The Volga watched the Mongol advance, the rise of the Tsars, the revolution, the siege, and everything that followed, carrying whatever the land gives it down to the sea. In most of the world, large predators are a memory. They exist in fragments of former range, in protected zones, in numbers that no longer function as real ecological forces. Russia is one of the few exceptions. A country large enough and wild enough that genuine populations of some of the world's most powerful hunters still move through landscapes that have not been fundamentally altered. The Amur tiger, also known as the Siberian tiger, is the largest wild cat subspecies on Earth. Large males can exceed 300 kilograms and reach total lengths of around 3.5 meters. Adapted to temperatures that would be lethal to any other tiger population, it lives in the temperate forests of Russia's Far East. specifically in Primorsky Krai, near the borders with China and North Korea, where Korean pine and Mongolian oak grow in forests that look nothing like the Siberian taiga, denser, darker. A forest where deer and wild boar move between trees that also shelter brown bears. By the mid-20th century, hunting had reduced the entire wild Amur tiger population to somewhere around 40 individuals. 40 for a species whose range once stretched across much of Northeast Asia. That number represented the very edge of functional extinction. What followed is one of the more documented conservation recoveries in recent wildlife history. Through decades of protection, anti-poaching enforcement, and habitat management, the population has rebuilt to approximately 500 to 600 individuals in Russia today. Still a small absolute number. But a return from the brink that few thought possible, the Amur leopard faces even greater odds. Found in a small patch of forest at the Russian-Chinese border, it is the most endangered big cat subspecies on Earth. In the 1990s, fewer than 30 individuals were believed to survive in the wild. By the early 2020s, with the Land of the Leopard National Park, established in 2012, playing a central role in their protection, that number had grown to approximately 90. Still critically fragile, but moving in the right direction. Russia's brown bear population, estimated between 100,000 and 120,000 individuals, is the largest in the world. In a country with this much intact wilderness, the great predators have not been entirely displaced. They are still here, still hunting, and in some cases, genuinely recovering. That fact is rarer than most people realize. Every June, something quietly remarkable happens in St. Petersburg. The night never fully arrives, from late May to mid-July. The city enters a state of extended golden twilight that persists through what the clock insists should be the middle of the night. The sun dips below the horizon for a few hours around midnight, but the sky never darkens to true black. Instead, it holds a soft, diffuse luminosity, amber and pale blue, that turns the Neva into something close to polished bronze and makes the embankment facades glow as though lit from inside. These are the Beli Nochi, the white nights. The reason is geometry. St. Petersburg sits at roughly 59.9 degrees north latitude, further north than Moscow, further north than almost any other major city of comparable size in the world, and close enough to the Arctic Circle that around the summer solstice, the sun's arc barely clips below the horizon. The light that results is genuinely disorienting. Walking along the embankment at 1 in the morning under a sky that looks like late afternoon, the brain keeps recalculating. Time feels provisional. Dostoevsky used this atmospheric strangeness as the backdrop for some of his most emotionally charged fiction, and it's easy to understand why. There is something about sustained light without darkness that shifts the emotional register, that makes everything feel simultaneously more possible and more strange. The White Nights Festival draws visitors to the Mariinsky Theater, one of the world's great venues for opera and ballet, for performances that begin after most cities have gone to sleep. The city's famous drawbridges, raised each night during the warmer months to allow ship traffic through, become part of the spectacle. Enormous spans rising against a sky that never goes dark, temporarily dividing the city into separate islands until they lower again before dawn. The most visually striking single event of the season is Scarlet Sails, held each June for the city's school graduates. in which a tall ship under crimson sails moves through the Neva, while fireworks illuminate the bridges. Hundreds of thousands of people line the embankments past midnight, in light that makes the hour genuinely ambiguous. It is one of the few celebrations in the world where you need neither torches nor the sun to see each other's faces at midnight. There is a statistic about Lake Baikal that most people hear and immediately assume has been misquoted. Lake Baikal contains approximately 20% of all the liquid fresh surface water on Earth. Not 20% of Siberia's water. 20% of the entire planet's accessible, unfrozen fresh water held in a single lake in southern Siberia. To put that another way, all the rivers of the world combined carry more water past a given point in a year than Baikal holds at rest. To begin to understand how this is possible, you have to look at what Baikal actually is. And it is not simply a lake. It is a tectonic rift, a slowly widening fracture in the Earth's crust that began opening approximately 25 million years ago, at a time when most of the lakes we know today didn't yet exist. Each year, the eastern and western shores drift a few centimeters further apart. Most geologists believe that in millions of years, this rift will become a shallow sea, an ocean in the very earliest stages of its formation. What we call a lake is, in the longer view of geological time, an ocean's prologue. The fracture is 636 kilometers long. At its deepest point, it reaches 1,642 meters, deeper than the height of the world's 5 tallest buildings stacked on top of each other. That depth is everything. The volume of water filling this crack in the crust is simply staggering in a way that surface area alone cannot explain. In winter, Baikal freezes to a depth of over a meter, and the ice that forms here is unlike any other ice on Earth. Because the water contains almost no dissolved minerals or sediment, the ice is genuinely transparent. Not just slightly clear, but transparent, like thick glass. Standing on it feels like standing on nothing over a void, with visibility extending tens of meters straight down into dark blue water. The ice itself lives its own life. As temperatures shift between day and night, it expands and contracts, and the accumulated tension eventually releases as enormous fractures called stanovi shcheli, cracks that can be several meters wide and run for tens of kilometers across the surface. On a still winter night, the sound of one opening carries across the ice like a gunshot. More than 1,700 species of plants and animals in Baikal exist nowhere else on Earth. The result of millions of years of isolated evolution inside what is effectively the world's most ancient aquatic laboratory. Among them, the Baikal nirpa, the only purely freshwater seal species in the world. Far from any ocean, in the geographic center of the world's largest landmass, a seal hunts alone in water that has never seen a tide. How it arrived here is still debated by scientists. The leading theory is that ancestors migrated up ancient river systems from the Arctic millions of years ago and became permanently landlocked as the lake's geography shifted around them. The nirpa didn't come to Baikal intentionally. It simply arrived, adapted, and stayed for millions of years. At the far eastern edge of Russia, where the Pacific tectonic plate is being slowly forced beneath the Eurasian continent, a peninsula rises from the sea that looks and behaves like a much younger planet. This is Kamchatka, and in the most literal sense, it is still being made. The Kamchatka Peninsula stretches roughly 1,200 kilometers from north to south and is home to approximately 300 volcanoes, of which around 29 are currently active. one of the densest concentrations of active volcanism anywhere on Earth. The landscape that results is not subtle. Steaming calderas, fields of sulfurous vents, rivers kept ice-free in mid-winter by heat rising through their beds, and rising above all of it, Klyuchevskaya Sopka, the highest active volcano in all of Eurasia, standing at approximately 4,750 meters, erupting so regularly throughout recorded history that geologists treat its activity less as an event and more as a permanent condition. In 1941, a botanist named Tatyana Ustinova became the first scientist to document the Valley of Geysers. Close to 100 active geysers packed into a river valley only a few kilometers long, each one erupting on its own schedule, the steam visible from the ridges above. Nowhere on Earth except Yellowstone in the United States matches this density of hydrothermal activity. In 2007, a massive landslide buried roughly 2/3 of the valley under rock and debris. Within years, dozens of geysers had re-emerged, punching back through the new terrain, as though the Earth had no intention of accommodating the interruption. This landscape does not stay put. It is still writing its own geography, but Kamchatka's most extraordinary story is not geological. Each autumn, 5 species of Pacific salmon return to its rivers in numbers large enough to sustain entire food webs, and where salmon gather at this density, predators follow. Kamchatka's brown bears are among the largest on Earth, comparable to Alaska's Kodiak subspecies. In autumn, they gather at river mouths in concentrations almost unmatched anywhere in the world. Wading into the shallows, standing still with a quality that looks patient but is something more precise than patience, and taking salmon directly from the air as the fish leap upstream. This has been happening here, largely undisturbed, for thousands of years. In 1996, the volcanoes of Kamchatka were inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It remains one of the few places left on Earth where the word wilderness still means what it originally meant. Most people, asked to name the world's largest forest, say the Amazon. They are wrong, and not by a small margin. The Siberian Taiga covers an area of roughly 5 million square kilometers, comparable in size to the entire European Union, and together with Russia's other boreal forests, accounts for approximately 1/5 of all forested land on the planet. The Amazon is extraordinary, but Renche Amazon is comparable because the taiga is the largest contiguous forest on Earth. Fly over the heart of Siberia and look in any direction. Trees stretch to every horizon, larch, pine, spruce and fir, unbroken for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. No roads visible from altitude, no villages. Sometimes a river running silver through the green. But even that appears to be swallowed by the forest almost immediately, as though the trees are slowly, patiently reclaiming it. Now comes the real question. How does a forest this immense survive on a frozen foundation? Beneath the taiga lies permafrost, ground that has not thawed in thousands of years. During the brief Siberian summer, only the topmost layer of soil ever warms enough for roots to penetrate. In some places, that layer reaches a couple of meters. In others, just 40 centimeters. 40 centimeters, barely the depth of a household ruler, is all the ground a 30-meter tree can access. The solution these trees arrived at across millions of years of evolution. Spread sideways, not down. Siberian larch and cedar pine grow enormous, shallow, horizontal root systems. Flat plates spreading far wider than the tree is tall. The tree trades depth for reach, anchoring itself to a thin, thawed disk of soil rather than driving into bedrock. When gale force winds strike the taiga, Entire groves can topple simultaneously, roots and all. In Russian, this is called burelom, a specific word for the particular chaos of a wind-thrown forest. What looks like disorder from the air is, from inside, a layered habitat, tunnels, platforms, sheltered chambers where dozens of species find cover, hunt, and raise their young. The ecological role of this forest extends far beyond Russia's own borders. Scientists estimate that Russia's forests store tens of billions of tons of carbon, enough to make them a meaningful variable in the planet's climate system, not merely a national landscape. The taiga is not just Russia's forest. In a real sense, it belongs to everyone. Near the geographic center of Asia, where the borders of Russia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and China converge, a mountain system rises that is, in ecological terms, one of the most extraordinary crossroads on Earth. The Altai Mountains span the meeting point of 4 countries and many ecosystems in rapid succession. At their highest reaches, glacier-covered summits above 4,000 meters support nothing but bare rock, ice, and wind. Within a few hours' descent, those glaciers melt into rivers that feed warm valley floors, mild enough for wildflowers and pine forests. Nowhere else in Central Asia compresses this much ecological range into so short a vertical distance. Russia's highest Altai peak, Mount Beluga, rises to 509 meters, the highest summit in Siberia. From its glaciated flanks, meltwater flows into the Katun River, which eventually carries that same water more than 5,000 kilometers north to the Arctic Ocean. Stand at the source and try to follow that journey in your mind. From glacial ice to the Arctic Sea, and you begin to understand the scale of what flows through Russia. In 1998, several components of the Altai were inscribed as a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site, recognizing biological diversity of global significance. Over 2,000 plant species, dozens of mammal species including the argali, the world's largest wild sheep, and on the high ridgelines, following the argali's movements through terrain that few other predators can access, the snow leopard. It is almost impossible to see a snow leopard in the wild. Its gray-gold coat, with dark rosettes, merges with stone so completely that experienced researchers have stood 20 meters from a resting animal without detecting it. Most of what zoologists know about its Altai range comes from camera traps, images taken automatically in the dark of an animal that passes through its territory, leaving almost no visible trace. It hunts by patience and by gravity, positioning itself above prey on a slope and waiting, sometimes for hours, before committing to a single decisive downward strike. One kill can sustain it for several days. It does not take more than it needs. In a landscape where food is always scarce, and a single misstep on steep terrain can be fatal, an animal that wastes nothing. Not energy, not movement, not food, is an animal that survives. No country faces the Arctic on a longer front than Russia. Roughly 24,000 kilometers, runs from the Norwegian border in the west to the Bering Strait in the east. Not a border with another nation, but a border with the frozen ocean itself. To maintain any kind of presence along this front, to move cargo, supply remote communities, assert a sovereign claim over waters that have long resisted assertion. Russia operates the only fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers in the world. The largest of the new project, 22,220 class vessels exceed 170 meters in length and displace more than 33,000 metric tons. They are engineered to break through ice up to 3 meters thick, and their nuclear reactors allow them to operate for years between refueling stops. Watching one move through pack ice is an experience that recalibrates your sense of what machines can do. The bow rides up onto a pressure ridge, and the sheer mass of the ship crushes it downward, and the ice does not crack so much as shatter, folding away in slabs the size of buildings. The northern sea route, running along Russia's Arctic coast, can be 30 to 40% shorter than the route via the Suez Canal for cargo, moving between Europe and East Asia. As Arctic sea ice retreats, it becomes navigable for longer periods each year, with consequences for global shipping patterns still being calculated. Above 80 degrees north latitude lies Franz Josef Land, an archipelago of approximately 192 islands, receiving perhaps a few hundred visitors in a good year. No permanent civilian population, no infrastructure. Just ice, rock, and the creatures that have adapted completely to this edge of the world. Polar bears crossing sea ice with the unhurried confidence of animals that have never known a predator of their own. Walrus hauled out in groups of hundreds on rocky shores, and seabird colonies so dense that their collective noise carries kilometers offshore. The global polar bear population is estimated at between 20,000 and 31,000 individuals. A meaningful share of these animals range across Russian territory and Arctic sea ice, and that ice is disappearing. The Russian Arctic is warming at roughly 2 to 3 times the global average rate, a frontier that was, for most of human history, a barrier, becoming something else entirely. We began with the problem of scale. An hour later, we are no closer to solving it, and that is perhaps the correct conclusion. Russia is a country where a single lake holds more fresh water than all of North America's Great Lakes combined, where a forest larger than the European Union grows on ground that has been frozen for longer than our species has walked upright, where a railway takes 7 days to cross, and where the sky in winter does things that physics can explain, but no photograph fully captures. It is a country where the largest wild cats on Earth came back from the brink of extinction because enough territory existed to give them room, where volcanoes continue erupting on a schedule older than human civilization, where a crack in the Earth's crust is slowly becoming an ocean, and where stone columns carved from half-billion-year-old rock stand in rows along a river that no one outside the region has heard of. It is a country where the Neva River holds the light of the midnight sun in June, and where in January, the temperature in an inhabited village falls far below what most of the world considers survivable, where a railway was cut through a continent not because it was easy, but because a state this large needed to be connected, where a beach ball-sized metal sphere changed what humanity believed was possible, and where the launch pad that made it happen is still standing, what this hour could only gesture toward, the languages spoken in its mountain valleys that exist nowhere else on Earth. The rivers flowing through Taiga that no camera crew has followed. The species still being described by scientists in territory so remote that expeditions require months of planning just to reach it. Russia is not a country that gives itself up easily. To travelers, to summary, or to the kind of clean understanding that fits comfortably into a single film. It asks for patience. It always has. And perhaps it is not a coincidence that the place on Earth that demands the most patience from the creatures and people who call it home has also produced, in response to that demand, some of the most remarkable adaptations, biological, architectural, cultural, and human, that our world has to offer.